Friends, hello everyone! What happened at Ben Gurion Airport is extraordinary. The Iranian strike drone Arash-2 breached the Iron Dome, that very system Israel had spent years presenting as an impenetrable shield, and struck the country's largest airport. Not a military facility in a remote combat zone, the main air gateway of Israel, through which hundreds of thousands of passengers and cargo pass every single day. The Arash-2 is an Iranian loitering munition, in other words, a kamikaze drone. A drone that doesn't deliver a bomb to a target. It is the bomb. The operating principle is as follows. The device is launched, proceeds along its route, can remain airborne for hours awaiting a target, then dives onto it with a warhead on board. This class of weapon gained widespread use after Iran supplied similar Shahed-type devices to the Ukrainian conflict zone, where they demonstrated exceptional effectiveness against Ukrainian infrastructure, but the Arash-2 is a different generation entirely. Let's break down what specifically makes the Arash-2 fundamentally different. Range, by various estimates, in excess of 2,000 kilometers. That means the launch can be carried out from Iranian territory, bypassing intermediate staging grounds in Yemen, Iraq, or Lebanon. The warhead is significantly more powerful than that of most loitering munitions from the previous generation. The maximum explosive payload allows it to inflict serious structural damage even on hardened facilities. Speed and flight altitude, this is precisely where things get particularly interesting, and we'll return to it in a few minutes. Write in the comments, had you heard of the Arash-2 before, or has this weapon remained in the shadow of more widely known Iranian developments? Now let's turn to the strike itself, because how exactly it was carried out says no less than the fact of the impact. Ben Gurion Airport is located approximately 15 kilometers east of Tel Aviv. This is not simply a transport hub, it is the economic aorta of Israel. The overwhelming majority of international passenger traffic passes through it, along with a significant share of cargo flows, including pharmaceuticals, electronics, and military equipment. A strike against this facility is simultaneously a strike against the economic, logistical, and psychological resilience of the country. Iran understood this perfectly when selecting the target. The Iron Dome is an Israeli air defense system developed in partnership with American allies. It was created primarily as a response to unguided short and medium-range rockets, Qassam, Katyusha, Grad. The logic of the system works like this. A radar detects an incoming projectile. A computational module determines whether it will land in a populated area, and if so, a Tamar interceptor is fired. The system works. It has proven its effectiveness in numerous conflicts, but it has limits, and the Arash-2 used those limits as a doorway. How exactly? Here I return to the first detail I promised. The Arash-2 combines several characteristics, each of which individually creates difficulty for interception, and together they create a qualitatively different challenge. First, a small radar cross-section. In other words, the drone has low radar visibility. It is small and constructed using materials that reduce the radar return signature. Second, the ability to fly at extremely low altitudes. The Iron Dome is optimized for ballistic trajectories, objects that fly high and fall downward. An object that approaches a target low and slowly fits into the radar detection picture in a completely different way. Third, high maneuverability. The drone can change course, which substantially complicates the interceptor's task. What happened in the immediate vicinity of the airport? The strike hit infrastructure. Exact details of the consequences were still being clarified at the time this material was prepared, and Israeli military censorship immediately imposed restrictions on the publication of photographs and specifics of the damage. That fact alone says a great deal. When censorship is imposed, it means there is something to conceal. Air traffic was suspended, several flights rerouted, international carriers halted operations. For an economy already bearing enormous wartime expenditures, every hour of a closed airport means millions in lost revenue. The Israeli air defense concept was built around multiple layers: the Iron Dome for close-range threats, David's Sling for medium ranges, Arrow for long-range ballistic missiles. This is a multi-tiered system built with active American funding. The total volume of American support runs into tens of billions of dollars over several decades. And yet this system, for all its technical sophistication, allowed a drone through to the country's largest airport. This does not mean the system is useless. It intercepts thousands of objects, but it means there are gaps in it. And Iran has learned to find those gaps. This changes the entire psychology of the confrontation. Israeli citizens have spent years living with the understanding that the Iron Dome protects them. That understanding has now developed a crack, and a crack in the psychological shield is sometimes more dangerous than a crack in the physical one. The United States, which has spent years funding and supporting the development of Israeli air defenses, now faces an uncomfortable question. If the Iron Dome cannot intercept the new generation of Iranian drones, what is needed? Either fundamentally new systems or a fundamentally different approach. Both options require time and money, of which the American military budget has progressively less as global commitments stretch it further. But the most important thing is what is happening on the Iranian side of the equation. Tehran is consistently pursuing a strategy I would describe as an architecture of asymmetric pressure. Its essence is simple: create for the adversary such a volume of diverse simultaneous threats that none of them can be fully neutralized. The Houthis in the Red Sea attack commercial shipping. Hezbollah in northern Israel keeps border regions under constant tension. The IRGC supports proxy groups in Iraq, Syria, and Gaza. And Iran itself delivers precise, targeted strikes to wherever they are most psychologically and economically painful. I will give you my personal view directly. This strike is not a victory in a war. It is something different and more long-term. It is a demonstration that technological superiority is not the final answer to asymmetric threats. That behind every multi-billion-dollar shield there are gaps, if the adversary is sufficiently patient and consistent in searching for them, and that the war in the Middle East is moving further away from the model of frontal confrontation and closer to a model in which victory is determined not by the seizure of territory, but by the erosion of the sense of security. In the coming weeks, we will see how Israel constructs its response, and how much that response affects Iran's willingness to continue. The key question: will a firm Israeli reaction halt the next wave of strikes? Or will it, on the contrary, provide Tehran with an additional narrative for mobilizing allies and its domestic audience? The answer to that question will shape the dynamics of the conflict for months to come. Write in the comments how you assess what has happened. Is this a turning point in the regional balance of power, or one of many episodes in a drawn-out confrontation that will not change the overall picture? Your opinion matters to me. Until the next episode.